I want you guys to take a look at this global migration chart. It shows globally in the year 2020 where people are leaving and immigrating to. The major countries people are leaving include India, Mexico, Russia, China, and the destinations are the United States, Germany, Saudi Arabia, Russia, the UK, and many more. And this map is potentially a bit more clear to see where people are leaving and where they are ending up. And you're going to notice on a global scale, immigration largely tracks with risk factors when it comes to climate change. Now, I'm not saying that people immigrate only because of climate. The biggest reason people move countries is due to economic opportunity, but that itself, long term at least, is also tied to climate and extreme weather. So it does make sense that on a macro scale, these two things do agree with each other. But the thing I've always found so confusing is if you zoom into just the United States, here for the past 50 plus years, the internal migration within the United States has been towards the Sun Belt. These areas like Texas, Arizona, Florida have been gaining population at a huge rate. But this part of the country is also going to be the worst affected by climate change over the next century. And eventually there has to be a reckoning here. People will eventually change their direction of migration as the economic effects of this begin to take hold. So this map here is a detailed view by county of population decrease in pink/purple and increases in green. Now, as a whole, America is one of the few countries in the world that's going to be continuing its population growth over the next century. And most of that growth is going to places like the urban areas of Texas, all of Florida, major cities in the southeast like Raleigh, Charlottesville, North Carolina, and of course, Phoenix, which is potentially the biggest enigma of all. Now, we do have another area of population growth in the Rocky Mountains here, but this can be a little bit misleading because this graph here is based off of percentage population growth. So even though the population of Idaho grew by 5.4%, that's only a numerical change of 100,000. Meanwhile, Arizona has seen double the amount of people move to it. Now, there is a logical reason for this. For the same reason, globally, people are moving to the United States. Within the country itself, the South is performing better economically speaking, with the Southwest having GDP growth of over 5%, and the Southeast also above average at 3.1% economic growth. And in comparison, the Great Lakes, the Northeast, economically, they're just not providing as much opportunity. There's a bunch of reasons for this. One is that the southern states tend to be a bit more business friendly, lower taxes, easier to do business in. But on the other hand, the northeast of the country, even the west coast, it's more economically developed. So they've already gone through their major growth phase, and now they're richer, more expensive areas of the country. They tend to be a great place to live. We can see here that the Human Development Index is highest in these areas, but that also means that the cost of living here is the most expensive in the country. When you combine that with the slower economic growth in these areas, that's why we see a lot of young people in particular leaving these parts of the country and moving south. But economic opportunity and the climate are heavily intertwined, and as one changes, so does the other. So for example, right now in the United States, technically this area is the most hospitable for human habitation. Things like agriculture, optimal rainfall, but as the climate warms, this area predictably is shifting further and further up north. Extreme heat is going to plague the southern United States and have a massive impact on economic productivity, and places like Phoenix are going to be the epicenter of this warming and could feature 6 months out of the year of above 95-degree temperatures. In these conditions, it is straight up unsafe to be outside for any prolonged period of time, and that's going to be the norm in Phoenix. With rising temperatures, crop yields are going to change dramatically in the United States. In places like Texas, Arizona, the Southeast, there will be massive declines in crop yields, but a lot of this productivity will be shifted up north in areas that previously had shorter growing seasons. So combining all of this with the increased wildfires, sea level rise, this is the overall projected cost of climate change to various portions of the United States. The Southeast, Gulf Coast, Arizona is hit particularly hard, but other areas like Seattle, the Great Lakes, the Northeast stay relatively unchanged and may even benefit economically from this change in the climate. So to wrap up here, essentially this migration we see within the United States from places like the Great Lakes, the Northeast, to the Southwest and even the Southeast is unsustainable due to climate change. These are the exact areas that are going to be hit the hardest by climate change. Even today, we're seeing costs begin to rise in things like home insurance in these states. As flooding, wildfires become more prevalent, the cost of insurance is skyrocketing. Some people even predict that right now there's a climate-induced real estate bubble in these states that's going to pop once everybody leaves these states towards other areas of the country that are not as heavily impacted. So if you want to get ahead of the curve, in my opinion, now is a great time to buy some real estate in Seattle, the Midwest, the Northeast, before they get swamped with climate economic immigrants from the Sun Belt.